Not necessarily in this one. Passion for the mission. You can't skip this. You can't say, oh, that person has wealth or has influence. That person is a great attorney. If they are not in love with your organization, don't take them. Number 2, the ability to communicate that passion effectively. By the way, that road runs both ways. You've got to help them learn how to do that if you're an executive director. A new sphere of influence. What I mean here is connections, not capacity. The days, in my mind, the days of, could you open your Rolodex, which we don't have anymore, could you open your Rolodex, please, and give me the names of 2 rich people? We are creating such a mythology about board service that we're scaring away so many people who would make fabulous board members. You want people with a sphere of influence. People who have passion, who are interested in inviting people in their sphere of influence to know more and do more for your organization. Trust me, that will lead to resources. It always does. Number 4, a skill you need and you can't pay for. So if you're a small organization, you might need an HR person to help you recruit a number 2. Maybe you need an attorney. Maybe you clearly, if you're a small organization, you don't have a director of communications, do you? How about a board member that has a PR background, who might have a junior associate who would do pro bono work, press releases, help you build a blog? I did this with a client in South Jersey. It worked like a charm. And lastly, a person whose passion for the mission of your organization is greater than her fear for asking people for money. That's a really important one. Please, 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 I beg of you, do not settle. So many people are hungry for board members, they settle. Trust me when I tell you, it is harder to move low performers off than to wait for the right people to get on your bus and in your village. Also remember, your village needs to be bigger than just your board and staff. Volunteers, folks in your community who may not want to help, but they don't want to serve on the board. Why don't you ask them to be part of a kitchen cabinet, a special subcommittee, helping you tackle a big strategitic issue? Build visibility for your work. There's lots and lots of ways to engage people who don't want to be board members. There's another village you need to remember that you belong to. In many ways, the one that joined this webinar is just such a village, isn't it? The Facebook groups, the village of nonprofits in your community. When I was in ED, I belonged to an executive director roundtable, and we met twice a month. We shared best practices. We supported each other. When I needed new board members, I'd chat with my colleagues about great new board members who were terming off of their boards. Same thing with donors. I'd come into the roundtable, I'd turn to my colleague who focused on ending homophobia in schools, and I said to him, I just brought a new donor to GLAAD who has a son who's being bullied, and I told her about Listen. She did not know about the organization, and I said, do you want to meet this person? And she said, yes, I would love to. And so I introduced the person to Kevin, and guess what? The donor became a donor to GLAAD and to GLSEN. That's how it works. That's why I am absolutely fiercely opposed to the use of the word competition. I don't believe in it because I believe the pie gets bigger. So work with your colleagues and be generous, because that's who you are, or you wouldn't have had this job to begin with. So number 1 is focus on your village. Here's number 2. Shared leadership. See this twin engine jet? This is how I want you to think about your organization. I want you to see each of those engines. One is the board, one is the staff. Trust me, I know that many executive directors do not think about their boards this way. They see them as over there somewhere. That necessary evil. Like, can't you just leave me alone, go raise some money, stay out of my business? You can't. You need to see them as partners. You need to see your board chair as your co-pilot. The relationship between the board chair and the executive director is, in my mind, the single most important indicator of the health of a nonprofit. So what are the implications of a shared leadership model for a nonprofit? Well, partners. You're in it together. It means that the road runs both ways. Your board members will be engaged and ignited by the work when you enrich and appreciate them. When you talk about your roles, clarify them. When you develop board meetings that enable them to really feel a part of the organization. When they hear a story about the work that gives them goosebumps. When we stop thinking about boards in a transactional manner and begin to think about what a board member needs in order to be the best possible ambassador, then we're getting somewhere. And I know there are a lot of board members here this evening, this afternoon, whatever time zone you're in. I'm delighted about that because I believe that when I talk about nonprofit leadership, I'm not just talking executive directors, because the board chairs and the board leaders are as instrumental in the success of a nonprofit as any executive director. I could talk about this all day long, but I won't. Just one more thing. This is how you build a board that fundraises. You get the right people on the bus, those wacky village people, and then you invest in them. You give them what they need to be successful in their role. You make sure that they are given the opportunity to contribute everything that they bring to the table. Life experience, insights, common sense, strategic thinking, yes, a sense of humor. Because if you do that, you will not have to nag them to get out their checkbook, and you'll be even happier with the number on the check. Okay, number 3, building a culture of storytelling. I cannot tell you how simple this seems and how hard it is for leaders to tell a good story. To succinctly share with a potential stakeholder what their organization does and why it's important. I think the reason is because leaders love their organization and they want to tell people every single thing about them. What if I asked you about your kid? You wouldn't know where to start, and you probably wouldn't know where to stop. Same with leaders of nonprofits. They tend to go on and on. Or in an effort to be succinct, they forget to bring the work to work. I talk about this issue all the time, and every once in a while I see something really special. Something that hits the narrative on the spot. I did a speaking gig and some work for an interesting organization called Rebuilding Together. This is a 1 minute and 30-second promo that they did. Think about it as Habitat for Humanities, but volunteers fixing neighbors' homes so they can continue to be neighbors. I'm going to roll this 1 minute and 30-second video so you can see what I mean by a great narrative. You can hear me, but I cannot hear the sound, Scott. You are muted, which I think is impacting your audio. Can you take this from the top? Unmute your audio, Scott, and then we'll try it again. It's worth waiting for.
For more than 40 years, as a leading national nonprofit in safe and healthy housing, we've been bringing people together to rebuild homes. And so much more. We're rebuilding pride by repairing and rehabilitating the houses of veterans, people with disabilities, and low-income homeowners so they can remain our neighbors. We're rebuilding communities by strengthening their foundations. Because a neighborhood is more than just houses and streets. It's familiar faces, helping hands, and open arms. And we're rebuilding the future of our historic cities by renewing the hopes of the people who call them home. Our vision is a safe and healthy home for every person. With almost 100,000 volunteers, our local affiliates complete nearly 10,000 rebuild projects across the U.S. each year.